What's up, fungal associates? Welcome to Completely Arbortrary. It's the podcast about trees and other related topics. I am one of your hosts. My name is Alex Crowson. And of course, over there on the big green couch, why don't you let him introduce himself here?
All right, yeah. What's your name, Couch?
Casey.
Sorry, I thought you were talking about the couch.
You
Alex.
goofball.
No, it's me. I'm Casey. I'm just Casey.
Well, how you doing, Case?
I am doing all right. This, you guys, let's see. This is coming out tomorrow, which is the 30th. On the 28th, Trump rescinded a bunch of stuff, caused me some ire.
Yeah.
Because I have different consulting contracts that are doing really good work and projects that I'm so excited about and are very close to my heart. And then got the email. It's like, nope, sorry, cut off until we figure this out. And it just is very frustrating to me. But we voted him in as a country, so I suppose that's what we got to deal with. But it's just, this is what we're in now, 9 days. Your birthday, 9 days ago.
Why do you insist on bringing up this shit every episode?
Well, because you ask how I'm doing, Alex, and I like to give you
This is how you're doing?
I'm constantly doing like this. No, okay, all right, hold on. Okay,
you went to Idaho.
I know, I was going to say, ask me again.
How are you doing, Casey?
I'm doing shitty, Alex. I used to be in Idaho, and I'm not in Idaho anymore. And Donald Trump is the reason why. No, I'm just kidding.
You gave a presentation in Idaho.
I did, yes. I just got back from Boise, and I did I talked at the Idaho Horticulture Expo, and I met so many lovely people who I'd either not known or I'd only known via email. So it was nice to actually sit down and chat about some things.
Well, you were out of town, and I was here at home base.
Yes, keeping the home fires burning.
Celebrating a week-long birthday celebration.
Yeah, which is awesome.
Which was great. And I kept seeing these emails come in that were like, it was great to meet you. And I was like, what the fuck? Where's this from? And then I remembered.
Nice, yeah.
Wait, Casey is meeting people right now.
And I always say, if you want to contact me, I give my arboriculture email, which is, in case anyone else wants, Casey@pdxarbor.com.
There you go.
But they look us up, they look me up, and they look up Completely Arbortrary. They find our email, which is hello@arbortrarypod.com, just in case.
And they see our podcast and they hear a little bit of it. And any credibility you had flies out the window.
They're just immediately gone. Yep. And they're like,
what the fuck is this shit?
I'm just going to delete this email. There you go.
Trail snacks.
Yeah, undo.
Casey, I want to answer that question too. I'm doing okay.
Yes, I was.
Now, let's move on. And I have a really exciting little prospect for the beginning of today's episode.
All right, let's do it.
We have a segment for later.
Oh, we do.
But I want to interject a little segment right now.
This is so uncharacteristic of you.
This is unprecedented.
Okay, yeah.
This is fun, Alex.
Wow, look at you.
Wow, I'm having fun. So,
hi, I'm fun, Alex.
We got an email from Rex Woo.
Oh, I love Rex Woo. Been around for a long time, Rex Woo.
Very long time listener. My little joke about Rex Woo is that he's worth celebrating.
Yeah.
You got to think about it for a second.
You'll get there.
Spelled
though.
differently, but come on. Let me have this.
No, Alex, no one's complaining. We're letting you have it.
Now, Rex sent us something very special, and you and I are going to take a little spoonful of sugar.
What?
To help our proverbial medicine go down.
Okay, hold on. What is this?
Casey, Rex sent us maple syrup, a favorite of yours.
It is.
However, there's a little twist. This is not sugar maple from the Northeast.
Yeah.
This is big leaf maple.
This is. Oh my God. Wow. Oh my God. Alex has just poured a Mary Poppins size spoon with a little bit of sweet sugar from the sun.
Yes, this is almost literally a spoonful of sugar.
Yeah.
Or as Mrs. Featherbottom from Arrested Development, Tobias, remember he does a Mrs. Doubtfire.
Oh yes,
he sings
about that.
A squirt of frosting down your throat will help you take your medication.
That show is brilliant.
The royalty-free version. All right, Casey, let's take a big old spoonful of this big leaf maple syrup.
Let's do it.
You know,
it's perfect.
As much as I love
that
syrup.
Yeah.
It is hard to take a spoonful.
Man, I disagree. That was wonderful. That was exactly what I needed.
That's fantastic.
So we have had now a bunch of maple syrup, different grades. we have had maple syrup from this particular maple species, the big leaf maple, Acer macrophyllum. We have also had walnut syrup from walnut tree.
Black walnut syrup.
And I loved the very first flavor of the black walnut because it was just like, whoa, ho. And then having more, I was like, okay, this is a lot. But it seems like something that needs to be mellowed out.
This does not feel that way.
It doesn't. This is
very
perfect.
mellow.
Yes, it's very mellow. It's not watery, but it's much thinner than
it
other
is.
maple syrup.
It's a great, they did a great job. This is Neil's Big Leaf.
Neil's Big Leaf, out of where?
Gosh, I don't know, but they are at neilsbigleaf.com. Maybe that's where they're from.
Everyone go and buy their syrup. And also everyone find Rex Wu and give Rex like a big high five.
Yeah, it says tapped on the West Coast.
That's us, baby. Nice. Thanks,
God,
Rex.
I wish I was tapped on the West Coast.
Let's move on, Alex.
All right.
I wish I was tapped on the X. Get out of here.
Casey, we've got a great tree to talk about today.
Yeah, we do.
And then in parentheses, I think. And I'll tell you why I think.
Okay.
And it's questionable because, like a good little boy, every time we record a new episode, I go into our project management software here.
Yeah.
And I just kind of scope the scene under that episode. What has Casey written? What are we going to talk about?
Yeah.
Now, this morning,
Say no more, Alex.
I checked.
I said say no more.
And it was completely blank.
No.
I don't know what to think about that. And then I Googled this tree.
Yeah.
And I said, that's right. That's that tree.
Uh-huh.
Because I know this tree because we've talked about it before. And it is the very wild Jaboticaba.
Nice. Well said.
Is that what you're going with?
Yes, you could also go with the Portuguese Jaboticaba.
Jaboticaba.
I think it's just a U instead of an O.
That's Jaboticaba. And this one is wild.
It is. For those of you who are interested in Latin more than Portuguese and English, it is Plinia cauliflora.
Interesting.
Yes.
Well, let's talk about that.
I need to look into this while we take our break.
Okay.
I just thought of something that I failed to look at, and I need to know because I thought about it before. Anyway,
I know what it is, I bet. Okay. I bet everybody else knows what it is, too. And we are going to talk about this tree after a quick break. We'll be right back with Completely Arbortrary. Welcome back. Do you need more time?
Nope.
To Completely Arbortrary. Today we're talking Jaboticaba. Let's imagine, as we do every episode, that you and I don't know, I get South American vibes from this tree.
Yes.
Maybe because you said Portuguese.
Yes, yeah, which is, yes, good, well done.
The national language of Brazil, although also Portugal. So
that is true. That is very true.
I definitely get South American vibes. Casey, let's imagine that we're walking through Brazil.
Yeah, all right.
Let's get hyper specific and say Brazil.
I think that is a good place to start.
One of the biggest countries in the world. And we come across some Jaboticaba. We don't even know what to think because this thing is crazy. Casey, let's ID this tree.
That sounds fabulous. So the first thing that you're going to see on this tree, ideally, if you go in the right time of year, which apparently is almost any time of year, you will notice it is covered in what appears to be grapes.
Getting right into it.
Just getting right into it because I want to say, hey, you see that? What's going to draw you to this tree? The bark? No. The foliage? No. Not really. The flowers? Also? Not really. No. But you will see these weird bulbous growths off the side that look exactly like grapes, which is why this tree is often called the Brazilian grape tree.
Oh, wow.
Sometimes if we are looking at random English folks who are just naming things based on what they see, which we tend to do.
Grapes is a fine explanation. I don't think it's good enough.
Okay.
And I've got a better one.
Give me a better one. Give it, yeah. What do you got?
Every Christmas,
Okay.
I buy my father a box of chocolate-covered cherries.
Oh.
And these look like chocolate-covered cherries.
Really? You think so?
Yes. With those syrupy cherries in the middle.
Yeah.
Those like candied cherries.
I do know what you're talking about. Yeah.
These are chocolate-covered something. They look like little chocolate balls.
But they're just so big. They're so much larger. They're like up to almost 2 inches sometimes in diameter, generally about half an inch.
If I can fit it in my mouth, I'm eating it, okay?
Very fair, very fair.
Yeah, Casey. Well, this is interesting.
Is why I always call you Alex the Boa. Crowson.
The boa.
His jaw unhinges, and he will fit that entire antelope in his mouth.
That's right. You'll see it go all the way down.
You'll see it digest over the next several weeks.
It's not because I have a strong grip. No. It's because I'll eat a whole mouse.
I'll eat an entire mouse and unhinge my jaw to make sure it'll fit.
Yeah, Casey, what's going on with these fruit?
Oh, right. So it is a really interesting circular fruit that, as the name suggests, which is Plinia cauliflora, it grows right off the stem of the tree.
Very strange.
Yes. You remember we've talked about this a few different times, but the most notable was the cacao tree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I suppose that is similar. Yeah.
Yeah, it has cauliflower, or rather, when it blooms from what is called cauliflower,
Okay.
which is when the flower blooms right from a main stem or a main limb. Another tree that most people would probably be familiar with in the northern hemisphere, or certainly Europe and United States, is the redbud.
Okay.
Yeah, redbud, Cercis canadensis. Most people see it blooming in early mid-spring, and it's with these gorgeous pink flowers. It's a very common tree in our cities. It grows natively on the East Coast. It grows natively over in Europe. Over there, they call it the Judas tree. You may remember we've covered that.
That's right.
They all have the same thing, where their flowers bloom all over the main stems.
It is funny how it makes such a difference to how I see this tree, because I look at it and I see all these what should be delectable fruits, and I'm like, oh, those are growths.
Oh,
This thing has some sort of
it's got some
fucked up
disease or something.
cancerous tumors growing off of it.
Man, okay, yeah. In this case, it is absolutely not. It is delightfully delicious.
Tell me more about them.
Well, so these are about the size of a grape, but like a big grape. Kind of those kind of awkwardly large grapes that you're like, is that a grape?
Totally.
It's kind of like that size.
Okay.
It's got a very dark, kind of almost purplish black, dark red. What I've read is astringent kind of skin on the outside. But I think that's more like if you have a grape, you know how the inside of the grape tastes far different than the outside?
Totally.
It's like almost zingier. I think that's exactly the same thing that happens here.
It's almost more like, I feel like you can taste the tannins in the skin.
Yes, I think you totally can. Yeah. So in this case, it's very, very similar in that regard. So it's about 1 to 3 inches on the biggest side. Usually 1.5 to 2 inches is what I have read most of the time. It's what it looks like to me when I see someone with it in their hand, you know?
That is large.
It is, yeah. It's fairly good size. And so like the flowers, of course, because the fruit comes from the flower, grows right off the stem, and it has a whitish pulp on the inside with several different seeds that are inside. So it's a technical berry, and it flowers and fruits almost 5 to 6 times a year.
Whoa.
So it's just like constantly going. It's just doing it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So it's one of those crops that is like fully invested in it being a tropical thing. It's not one of those, sometimes there's a nice season, there's this season. It's like, nah, baby, we're going. And once we're done, we're going again. And it just keeps on happening.
They do look delectable if you see a cross section of one of these berries.
They do, yeah.
I mean, I gotta have them.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, send it up to us, you guys.
This is going to be the new pawpaw.
It is.
Obsess over it until we get some.
But this, I don't know. There might be a few in like the south, like the far southern area of the United States, maybe Mexico. But they grow in straight tropic areas, specifically in like the Rio de Janeiro, like straight tropical regions of Brazil. That's like this species, but there's many, many, many more species. I think there's upwards of like 60 or 70 that grow across the tropics. So there are different species. Some are red, some are yellow, some have different flavors. But this one in particular is the kind of the king of them all, so to speak.
Species?
Yes. Well, I don't know if I'd say type. It might be because this Plinia was named after Pliny the Younger, which we all thought it was. Everyone knew it. You're familiar. You know Pliny, right?
I don't know. Who's that? Is that a person?
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Pliny.
Alex, I'm so sad to hear this.
Casey, you know my mind.
Pliny the Younger, as opposed to Pliny the Older.
Is this a character from A Song of Ice and Fire?
No, man,
Like
I wish
Great
it was.
John?
That'd be so great. No, he was a famous guy in ancient Rome, and Pliny the Elder is well known as like an old naturalist and horticulturalist back in ancient Rome.
Wow.
And I believe actually that Pliny the Elder died during Mount Vesuvius. So when that erupted famously and covered Pompeii and all this, he went over to help figure out, like, help the people, and then died during the kind of the aftermath. I don't know from exactly what.
So this is not a folkloric figure. This is a man who existed.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. 100%. So Pliny the Elder, and this, so he died in AD 79 after the eruption of Mount Vesuvius.
Gaius Plinius Secundus.
Yeah, isn't that fun? I
name.
love the old Roman names.
Great one.
Yeah, so there's Pliny the Younger, there's Pliny the Elder, there's a beer called Pliny the Younger and Pliny the Elder, which is great. I think it's from Russian River Brewing.
How did we get on this topic?
Oh, because I was noting the name of the...
Plinus.
Yes, Plinia.
Plinia,
Yes.
okay.
That is the name, the scientific name of this. And you said, is it the type species? And I said, I don't know.
Right.
But Linnaeus himself did give the name for this genus. So this might very well be the type. I have not actually seen that that's the case, though.
Okay, fair enough.
Anyway, so that is the main thing that you're going to see. You're going to see these gorgeous big fruits that look and taste fabulous.
Great.
Everyone likes them. They pick them very quickly, but they start to decay very quickly as well. I should say, not decay, ferment.
Okay.
So they're very hard to transport. Like we have grapes. You can buy grapes. You can send them, keep them cold, send them somewhere, and then put them out in the store, and boom, there you go. You got grapes. They're fresh. They're still doing well. These do not do that. Within like 4 days, they start to ferment and break down. So if you eat one that's a little past due, not going to be too tasty.
Sure.
Or maybe it'll be a little more tasty. I don't know.
Make a little tipsy.
Yeah. And very commonly, it's made into wines and all sorts of different jams and jellies because it has a short shelf life. So they would turn it into all these different kind of preserves, whether that is alcoholic with a kind of a traditional alcoholic wine, or if it's more like a jam or jelly that you can just spread on toast, things like that.
Interesting. Okay. Man, have you seen those videos of like raccoons eating fermented apples and getting a little drunk?
Yeah, I have.
I bet there are some tropical creatures who eat these from the ground and get a little tipsy.
Yeah, and they're like, oh yeah, this is the time. Those are the ones I want. Not those ones. Those are too nice.
Casey, can we talk about the bark a little bit?
Yes.
Only because it does have an interesting characteristic.
Okay, what do you see?
It's got that a little bit of like a monotone camouflage look to it.
It kind of does.
Like a Stewardia or something.
I totally see that. Most of the time, everything that I see always have slashes in it in terms of like the description. But it's generally kind of smooth, but has a little bit of roughness to it. And the descriptions I see are brown/copper/cream/tan.
Yeah.
So it's pretty much the gamut of
the beige family.
The beige family.
Yeah,
exactly.
that's great.
Yeah, so it's not like uniquely fancy, but it does have kind of those kind of exactly Stewardia. I think it's a perfect description. And then it also has these kind of lumps on it where the fruit was attached.
Right.
So it's kind of like a fruit or flower bud rather is at, right at the level of the bark. And then it blooms, and then it releases its fruit, and then a tree is always putting on new layers of wood. So if there's a bud that grows out, it's going to put on new layers of wood on the left and the right of that bud. So you end up getting this kind of knob that pops out. So old trees, if they don't have any fruit on it, which is pretty rare if it does it almost every 2 months, it's putting out a new set of flowers and a new set of fruit. You got to be willing to bet that most of the time you're going to see some fruit on one of these trees.
It's a cool look.
Yeah, so the knobs are kind of like in between, or maybe after they harvest them. But when they're young, it's way more redder. So like the smaller twigs are a little bit more red, which is pretty effective, I think, personally.
Does it have a practical purpose?
The bark does not. I don't think so.
Okay.
I think the bark is just there to keep everything dry on the inside, or rather, I guess, moist on the inside, and keep all the other stuff out. So small amount of protection, but I haven't heard anything about it being wildly insane, or smelly. It doesn't have any other real intense properties. So it's, I don't know, stage up from utility bark, but stage down between really utility. I don't know. It's somewhere in between there.
To me, a tree that grows a well-loved fruit doesn't really need to put any effort into any other part of it.
Exactly. And this, I think, is the case.
I don't know what the fuck happened, Casey. I have syrup all over my hands.
What?
I keep discovering it.
Well,
this is a terrible idea.
I'm so sorry to hear it, Alex.
And still,
need to,
I want more.
And still, I want more. So maybe that's what happened. You're just subconsciously pouring it on like your fingers just to convince yourself to have more.
There's some on my headphone cord.
You got to lick it off.
Jesus Christ.
See, this just makes me want to have waffles. Since I just want to go get waffles now.
I would love to.
All right, everyone, we'll be right back. We're going to go get some waffles.
This is a sensory nightmare.
Yeah.
Just have sticky fingers.
If you need to go wash your hands, you can do that.
I may end up doing that.
All right.
We'll do that during the break.
No, okay, that sounds like a good idea.
Should we talk about any other parts of this tree?
Well, we should note the leaves real fast just because we like to cover all the bases, of course. Now, the leaves are opposite and they're glossy, leathery green, and they're simple leaves, so they don't have anything else really going for them. They get to about 1 inch long, and they have a fairly dense canopy, but also not a canopy that you're just like, wow, it's covered in leaves. I don't think it's too dark underneath. So the leaves, in this case, utility leaves. There's nothing to them.
Yeah.
So the flowers...
I'm not even interested in them.
No, neither am I. I'm glad to hear it.
Let's move on.
Anyway, the flowers, those are kind of nice. They're like little, they're yellow, and they kind of pop out. They get pollinated, theoretically, by insects and bats that fly around.
Bats!
That is a theory we'll talk about in just a second.
Oh, my God. Well, Casey, that's our tree.
That is our tree, Alex.
It's a good-looking one. I like it. Now, impress me.
All right. Alex, I have never eaten this fruit. I don't know if it's good or bad.
Okay.
I have a feeling it's pretty good.
People like it.
However, they say the inside tastes a little bit like a cherry and a strawberry, I think, put together, something like that. But I honestly, whatever the first one was, didn't even pay attention to. As soon as it said strawberry, I was like, now I could go for a strawberry that is the size of a golf ball that grows in the dozens on the side of a tree. I can get behind that.
It's just pure fleshy fruit.
Yeah, exactly. It'd be
Yum.
fabulous.
Oh my God.
So the thing that I was kind of interested about, so first off, it's been a busy several weeks. I drove in from Boise and I got up at the early morning, about 5 o'clock, 5:30 on Monday. And I drove through the morning over to a meeting, immediately had enough time to write the last bit of an essay, and then I went to another meeting.
Wow.
Then I did another thing, and I had to research this, and I went back, and then I had to do another meeting today, and I had to rewrite some other stuff then. All this to say, I've been very busy. You looked this morning, and you're like, Casey has not made a single note here. And I was like, I know Alex can see this, so I know he can see that I have had no single notes.
And I know he's going to bring it up on air.
So I got to come up with something. No, I had actually given quite a bit of thought to this because last week and on Monday, when we were like, for those of you who don't know, we always sit down and plan our weeks and say, okay, what are we going to do? Make sure we're on the same page. And so I was like, okay, Alex, I don't know what we're going to talk about with this tree. I think we might just talk about the tree. And then I did some research after this, and I was like, man, there's not really a whole lot to talk about with this tree.
Uh-oh.
And anytime that happens, I got to turn on a little bit of creativity.
Sure.
And then I can sometimes find things that are interesting.
You got to deliver a product to the network.
You got to
no matter
deliver
what
a product. No, so my thought was also, if I cannot come up with something clever and creative, which usually, we can, you and I sit down and we scheme about something and we say, okay, how can we look at this tree differently? So this is where I backed up and I said, okay, what am I looking at? This weird fruit that grows off the side of a tree in the tropics. We've talked about previously cauliflora with a couple other different species, and we've said, okay, why does this happen? And one of the big things that that came up is that you would be a fruit-bearing tree that would have fruit that doesn't need to be at the very far ends of your branches.
Right.
So this was the assumption with that first theory with cacao, I believe we talked about this, was here is a big tough stem that's not going to break when a big gigantic sloth decides to grab onto it and kind of climb up and get all these fruits that are there. So essentially it takes the breakable sections away and puts it down on a harder, tougher area.
I see.
For bigger, stronger animals. And also makes it so they don't have to climb up your tree and break your stems and everything. Now, if you are getting things for birds or monkeys, then you'll just throw them straight up and you're like, yeah, wonderful. It's all the way up here. Birds and monkeys and all these other different animals that can access the canopy that are smaller can generally go grab everything from the ends of the branches.
I see.
So that's one theory. But my theory, or my question that I ended up kind of scheming on and thinking about for a while was, why are there so many more tropical fruits than temperate fruits?
Why are there more tropical fruits than temperate fruits?
Yeah.
I have a theory.
Okay. What's your theory?
Do you want to hear it?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't want to undercut your rigmarole.
Yeah, no, you're doing fine.
Well, is it one of those things where like Well, there are just a million trillion times more tropical plants than there are temperate plants.
That's a great question.
So, of course, there are going to be more fruits than there are temperate fruits.
Yeah. That is a possible theory. That is not unreasonable.
Okay.
But I don't know. I have found nothing that actually really shows it. Everything that I found in my research basically said, oh, well, here's the difference between tropical fruits and these other fruits, where they just say, oh, well, this is a mango and that's an apple. And they're like showing the difference between the fruits, not why ecologically are there so many more in the tropics than up here. Because even if I think we did the math and said, okay, how many trees up here grow in terms of diversity? How many species do we have up here? How many species do we have there? Do you think that the numbers of like
percentage
exactly are equal? Because that's the real test. Is that if they're down in the tropics, if there are still 5% of the trees produce delicious, sweet, edible fruit versus the 5% of trees in the northern, I shouldn't say northern, just the more temperate regions, they produce fruit, is it still 5% of the population?
Yeah.
And I don't believe that's true. Because in the Philippines, according to one of these things that I found, there are over 250 different species of edible tropical fruit in the Philippines alone.
Wow.
So if we can say, okay, the Philippines, a bunch of islands in the Pacific, if we go south or north a little bit, and we go into the Congo, we go into Borneo, we go into the South American tropical forests, there's going to be a huge number that's even bigger than what we find in the Philippines, most likely. So there's thousands of tropical fruit. And I think that pales into comparison, even if we go and look at all the trees that grow in the north, like all the species that we've covered so far, anything that was growing in ancient Greek times, your apples, not even our citrus fruits. Citrus and bananas, those are tropical fruit. We can't include those. We can include the pawpaw. We can probably include, I don't know, small berries,
cherries, and peaches and stuff.
We can include those. Those count. We can start adding those up.
It does feel like a short list.
I think we could get to the end of it pretty quickly if we just sat and like put our heads together for a bit.
Totally, yeah.
So in contrast, we have dozens of conifer species that are in the north, the northern hemisphere. When I say the north, I mean the northern hemisphere here, just in case.
Winterfell.
Yes, thank you. Winterfell, classically known for their fruit production.
Yes.
So there is just like a ridiculous amount of species that produce, if not really delicious like fruits, where a bird can go out and eat a crab apple or a cherry, they would have maybe a nut where we have lots of hickories, we have some walnuts and things like that. We have hazelnuts, but all of our conifers, none of those are like producing seeds that are really desired to be eaten. But I
can think of one.
Yeah, exactly. And we could probably, again, find a nice short list if we really gave it. But
stone pine.
If we gave it some time. Yes, exactly.
All I need is a little bit of pine.
And so, you think that, like, I have not found a good thing that has done this math, but I bet you if we started really looking into it, someone has come up with this question.
Sure.
So I ended up doing some little scheming, some brainstorming, and I'm like, okay, so if we are really considering this, what's going on in the tropics, which are famous for having this huge diversity of plants, as you noted already. So all those diversity of plants, none of them seem to, well, I shouldn't say none, fewer of them seem to have gone the way of a conifer and just created these very nice, easy, wind-dispersed seeds that go out and find their way.
Sure.
Plenty of them have, but such a huge number also have gone this other direction, which is explicitly meant to get another animal to eat and distribute your seeds. Ultimately, that's what fruit is for. It's a means of distribution.
Sure.
For the seed itself.
Now I have another theory.
What's your theory now?
It's almost reverse engineered where, these trees are growing up with all of these diverse animals. There's so many, probably more so than trees and plants, right?
Conceivably, yeah. I don't know.
A crazy diversity of animals in the tropics. They're like, we gotta, I'm gonna pick that one. All right, let's grow a fruit for that one.
Okay.
So I'm gonna grow a fruit for that one. They're very different, even just these two birds.
Exactly. So if I
does any of that make sense? Did I just sound fucking stupid?
No, I don't think so. But let me
make it smart.
Let me see if I can. Let me see if I can help make it smart. This is my job. I take whatever Alex says and I make it smart.
I know what I'm saying.
So I think what I'm hearing, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, is that you, in an evolutionary sense, are saying, okay, we've moved into this new neighborhood. Wow, it's very hot and humid here. The weather is beautiful all year round. There's plenty of rain. I am going to make a fruit, but that fruit gets eaten by one species of animal.
Right.
So now I'm actually going to grow a different, or this other kin over here starts to develop a fruit for a different animal. So they almost specialize per animal is kind of what you're saying.
Exactly.
I also had the same thought.
Okay.
Where essentially...
Not so stupid now, huh?
Not so stupid now.
Now that Casey thought it too.
Yeah, I want to know who you're talking to. Yeah, not so stupid now, man.
I'm talking into a mirror.
Okay, yeah, that's... Oh, Alex. Yeah, so that was my other thought, is that there's more competition, so you got to stand out a little bit more. You got to specialize.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of these species...
Welcome to the jungle.
Is literally speaking, thank you, Axel. You move down, or the climate becomes or has always been tropical, and so you need to compete, and ultimately that's what really creates all this diversity. As far as we know, it's just competition where you have to find your niche and you have to really sell yourself for whatever's going to help you survive that niche.
Sure.
So you, as a tree, would be doing this in terms of habitat. How will you grow in order to best compete in your space, geologically and spatially speaking? You're not even talking about how do you get an animal to disperse your seed.
Sure.
So first...
So like an immediate need of land.
Yes, exactly. And then competition between the buddies that you have around you. So that first creates this level of speciation. But as we know with genes, if you start to develop something that makes you better at taking drought conditions, then that also comes with certain genes that have certain traits, and maybe that ends up making your fruit smaller because you have to put more resources towards something else. So that is, like, I think, a very good base to start with.
Okay.
And then as soon as you start to develop species in the spatial kind of thing, then you also start to develop species that are based on whatever is eating the fruit. So if you can, for whatever reason, get more species to eat your fruit, or to get one species to only eat your fruit all the time, you're starting to really hedge your bets and get your competition out there.
Cool.
As soon as you do it, though, your buddy next to you is going to do the same thing. So you get this like arms war or arms race almost of creating new, different, interesting fruit.
Interesting.
So I think you're onto something with that.
Okay.
And there's this other theory that came out that I found that basically says there is an unlimited amount of certain resources down in the tropics that are different from the temperates. Nice. That's a perfect way to describe it, Casey. I'm also looking at myself in the mirror, clapping myself on the back for saying temperates.
And that's clap with 2 P's.
That's right. Don't forget it.
Okay, so they're unlimited resources.
Yes. Or, way, way more, to the point of being unlimited.
I'm thinking water.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yep.
Yeah. Anything else? Also, the temperature is always beautiful and nice.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, so you get a lot
frost.
of water. You can grow every single day of the year. So it's very nice.
I kind of like thinking about the tropics if all these plants were like people. Like, it would be so cush, but you got to fight for that lifestyle.
Yes. Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
you got to be on your toes constantly because somebody else is going to try to strip it away from you, or it's like King's Landing or something.
Yes, well...
I'm almost done with these books, I swear.
Done. I don't want you to ever end. It's beautiful. Now, Alex, this is a curious idea with adding in that other dimension of like you're always on your toes, so you're always like kind of evolving and changing.
Sure.
But I'm speaking more of the idea that you can put more effort towards reproduction and interesting ways to do that than you can put towards, or you have to put towards survival. So in the temperate regions, in the temperate regions, the trees go dormant most of the time. And when they go dormant, I shouldn't say most, for half the year, they go dormant and they have to kind of conserve their energy. And they only have half the year at most to really start growing and put on some extra height, compete with other ones around them, and then get something to flower or to pollinate their flowers, and then disperse their fruit. So they have to work really hard to do all of these things.
Yep.
So if you are like, I'm actually just going to put all of my budget not towards making big, delicious fruit, towards this other thing, growing fast, defense, something like that, and then just let the wind take it and just kind of hope to God that you can have your, millions of babies, a couple of them survive and grow.
Totally.
Whereas down in the tropics, you are like, well, I don't need to worry about that. I've already got the all day, all year to grow. So I'm going to grow as fast as I can. And then what I really need is to figure out how best to compete on this other level where you're essentially,
right.
Like you said, you have dealt with one thing and now you have to go figure out this other idea and get that really dialed in.
I think what you're saying, Casey, is that tropical plants have white privilege.
Okay.
They don't have to worry. Having to
sun's
survive.
always shining on
yeah,
you.
Yeah, I've never even thought about survival.
I see. Okay.
Look how nice I have it. I can focus on all these other things, like growing beautiful fruits.
You got trees up here being like, when I was your age, I couldn't even figure out how to make a fruit, much less make it fancy and fruity. I hate this. You
Must
guys are
be
so
nice.
privileged.
I got winter preparedness to think about half the year.
Yeah, I can only grow for half the year before it's getting too damn cold.
And survival has never been even a problem for these trees.
Yeah. Okay. All right. There you go. So they get a little affluenza down there.
Yeah.
I see. Okay. That's it. I think that's a fun idea. Maybe not white privilege, just privilege to begin with. We might have to maybe adjust that.
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, as it happens, I think that is a fairly reasonable thing. But the one thing that we always know is that the tropics are just constantly the biggest and the most of everything.
Sure.
Like anytime you talk about trees and you don't talk about the tropics, you're essentially not talking about 75% of what exists out there.
Totally.
In the ways of existing. They also tend to have such complicated interactions that have been going on for millions of years that it's really difficult to parse out exactly what happened, why, where it happens slower at different places. You can say, okay, we can follow that a little bit easier. In the temperate regions, they are a little bit slower. There's fewer characters interacting.
Sure.
Whereas in the tropics, all of that is multiplied by 1,000.
Totally.
So I think that the time factor and the evolution factor with what we've talked about kind of speeds all that up. And so now...
Oh, so they actually evolve faster.
Conceivably, yeah.
Okay.
I'm not going to sit
Is
here
that
and
a thing?
make that a statement.
Okay.
I think so, though. I think
Evolution is like elastic.
Yes, it's all happening kind of, moving forward. But
Right.
if one species has a generation that grows up in the temperate regions, like a Douglas fir or something, it grows up and it's like, cool, I'm here, I'm living my life, and it moves a little bit slower, and then new generations happen a little bit slower.
Yeah.
That generational change, evolution, takes longer.
Right.
Whereas in the tropics, if everything is sped up very quickly, you can have these new generations happen in a fraction of the time, and so they can evolve a little bit faster.
And if evolution is driven by competition, right? And there's more voracious competition in the tropics,
Yeah.
so it makes sense that evolution is just happening
Yeah.
faster.
The pressure is higher and hotter.
Yeah.
So it happens a little
It needs to
quicker.
happen faster.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like New York City.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's like the Rio de Janeiro of
Yeah.
places. So that's my thought.
In
And
a
then-
tropical minute.
In a tropical minute, dude. I love that.
It's actually 30 million years. but
But it happened quick, just to be clear. Now, see, here's the thing: if we focus it back in on our Jaboticaba tree,
nice.
the Jabba the Hutt tree, as
sure.
I constantly think about it,
Oh, fun.
Jaboticaba the Hutt.
There you go.
Sometimes I just tickle myself.
Jaboticaba the Hutt.
This tree, I think, it grows these really interesting things in a very interesting way. We know that there are dozens and dozens of species that also do the same thing. So I think that this is an example of all of these pressures coming together. And so this tree is like, okay, I have to evolve a different way to produce my fruit that works best for me. It puts it lower, and some people think that the whole reason for cauliflora is that bats would cling on, or other insects would cling on to the bark and then do their pollinating or eat the fruit, and then they would release and then fly away.
Interesting.
Rather than hovering in the air around a plant that has a flower up at the very tippy top out on the outer canopy. You can't really sit on a branch out there. So I think that this tree has just decided, okay, we're going to do it this way, and that way has been wildly successful. Dozens of species that grow all these particular fruits in a very particular way, and then whoop, send off and everything loves them, apparently.
Yeah.
I just think it's an interesting thing. And then when I think about all the other different trees that do some other kind of cauliflora, the cacao tree, for example, as well as a bunch of different figs, a lot of different species do
figs.
this. And they're all in the tropics, except for the redbud. But the redbud doesn't make delicious fruit that we'd eat.
Sure.
So it's kind of on a different scale, I think.
Yeah, I don't know if it counts.
Yeah. So I think that this tree is a pretty interesting example. And the reason that I think it also has been so successful is that it, as Michael Pollan put it, or would put it, is a tree that made an evolutionary bargain with humans.
Oh.
Did it know it was doing it? No, not technically. It probably did it for some other reason. I doubt that we humans or hominids, if we go back far enough, are the reason that this tree was like, oh yeah, I am going to grow like this. My guess is that came from some other animal pressure and reproduction pressure from millennia ago, way, way more, like millions of years. And now we are able to walk right up to a tree that we grew in a orchard-like setting. And now we can just go and eat one of those little things.
Yeah.
So now that tree, this one in particular, this species, I mean, is planted all over the place in the tropics because everyone loves it. Certainly in South America. I don't know if it's as popular elsewhere.
As an agroforestry tree?
Not necessarily agroforestry.
What is that word? For food.
Yeah, for agriculture.
Agriculturally.
Yeah, exactly. But if it's a forest, it's agroforestry. So yeah, you're on the right page there. Yeah. But yeah, it's on that level. It is grown in heaps. And there's another interesting thing that is worth another kind of consideration. And it's that in the tropics, the fruit from tropical trees are much more likely to be eaten as a staple food than things in the north.
Oh, interesting.
So I'll give you an example. In the south, so the global south, where there's a lot more tropical species and forests, things like bananas, plantains, dates, figs, coconut, and breadfruit are staples.
Sure.
They are grown and planted and eaten all the time.
Yep.
We in the north have very few that we would call staples.
Wow.
Most of those are all grains that we get from growing grasses.
Yeah.
Whether that's corn or wheat or sorghum, anything like that. Technically, sorghum, I know, is not a grass.
Rice. I know it doesn't grow here, but we import it.
Oh, no. We
use
grow
it as a grain.
We grow it all over the place.
We do?
Yeah. Very common.
Wow.
But not necessarily like in Oregon, but wherever there is other places. California, certainly, all over the place.
Really?
Yeah.
There are rice paddies in California?
It doesn't look like the traditional ones that you'd see sort of in the southeast.
It's a hipster rice paddy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's not as lovely. But yeah.
Wild. Yeah, I've never thought about that. That's really interesting. I'm trying to think of I think apple would probably be the closest, but I also don't think it really.
I think
we pack an apple for lunch,
yeah. But you don't eat an apple as a part of every meal all the time. Like coconut is in every kind of curry, every kind of soup in the tropics. Breadfruit is literally like used as bread in a lot of ways. It is a food that's constantly there.
Plantains, certainly.
Exactly.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah. So
that's my big takeaway. I love that fact.
And at the end of it, Alex, this is this a chicken and the egg sort of situation? Are there more fruits in the tropics, therefore more of them are staple foods? Or do we have more staple foods because we're growing them more in the tropics, which are, have more options available? I guess that might be the same thing. I don't know. But it makes
you think.
Yeah. Which is one because of the other, or do we just completely ignore all of our trees and we decided to do something else?
Right. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, because we have a bunch of nut trees that we could get up to that level, I'm sure. But maybe they just can't literally produce enough walnuts that we can actually turn that into a stable source for billions of people.
Yeah, like a flower or something.
I don't know.
That's really interesting. The more I learn about sort of I guess, anthropology in a way. This is related, certainly.
For sure.
It's like how everything is so connected and how what we eat affects how we vote or, our temperaments in generally or, how our public transportation reflects our inner desire to be on time.
Yeah.
Or like vice versa. So I wonder if the whole like Southern Hemisphere fruit staple, Northern Hemisphere grain staple, I wonder if there's like some that says something about us as people in a way.
Yeah.
It may. I'm certainly, neither you or I are qualified to speak on that. But if somebody
let's
out there,
speak on it anyway.
but here goes. But yeah, if somebody's listening and they're like, "Oh my God, I studied this and nobody gives a shit." Like, I give a shit.
Right.
Tell us.
It's a thing, Guns, Germs, and Steel by Jared Diamond talked a lot about this, where the entire big question is, did the Europeans grow these certain things in a certain way, and that is now made them better at competing and colonizing and all this other stuff? Like, what was the reason? Why was it the Europeans that colonized North America rather than the North Americans colonizing Europe?
Yeah.
That was his big question. So I think that can go with this. And he talked a lot about grains specifically. So I'm curious if that is the case. Like, if the fruits versus the grains end up having a bigger deal with that kind of as an ultimate factor rather than just a thing that we can look at and say, yeah, well, there's more trees, so we eat more fruit down here.
Right.
It's like, okay.
How does it change the way we think about
how does that change socioeconomics?
Yes. Yeah. Interesting. Oh my gosh, yum. I'm just eating up this topic.
You sure are.
Unfortunately, our knowledge base is about as shallow as a puddle.
And that's it. Now we've reached the bottom of the puddle.
Well, Casey, we got to give this tree a rating.
We sure do.
We got to do so after a quick break. We will be right back with Completely Arbortrary. Welcome back to Completely Arbortrary.
Thank you.
That was our discussion of the Jaboticaba. Casey, let's give a rating to this tree, and here's how it works. We're going to give some final thoughts on it, and then give it a rating of 0 to 10 golden cones of honor. As our resident expert, we'll begin with you.
Thank you, Alex. I think I like this tree. I think it's kind of middling in terms of treeness. I think a lot of times they keep it low and pruned so that they can get a lot of the fruit and things. It doesn't grow too big. We kind of even glossed over it. It gets like 40 or 50 feet tall. It's kind of a forest tree, half not forest tree. So it does some cool stuff. However, I personally want to try this fruit.
Yeah.
I think that would change my mind a lot.
Sure.
I think mostly that it looks so strange.
Yeah.
You walk into a forest, you walk into somewhere, and you see this tree with just what looks like just little balloons growing off of it in every way. And I have seen pictures of some that look chock full. I mean, like, you can't see the bark because there are so many small little golf ball size little fruit on every single part of the tree.
That's awesome.
It makes my day. So I think that just based on looks alone, I would give this tree, honestly, it doesn't like really jump out at me. I'm like, yeah, this is kind of interesting. It's kind of an interesting topic. Yeah, 6.5.
Okay.
Just 6.5.
Fair enough.
I want to go down to Brazil. I want to go to the wild tropics and go try a bunch of these and just pop them like grapes, see what it's like.
Sure.
See what they're all about.
Yeah, if somebody's able to, this is our new challenge.
Yes.
If somebody's able to send us some, I mean, if they start fermenting in 4 days, I don't know how likely it is, but
yeah, but hey,
freeze them or something.
Maybe. I mean, pawpaws were the same thing. They usually also lasted pretty horribly,
and we got those, and they were great.
We got those, and we love you guys because of it.
6.5.
6.5.
Ooh, dark energy.
I think it's a fine tree.
Okay.
It's fine.
All right.
Yeah, but that's about as far as I can go.
I said that, I said, dark energy, but it's not like I'm going to lighten it up any, and here goes.
Oh.
I have to try this fruit. Mm-hmm. And once I do, if I absolutely love it, I'll gladly give it a 9, whatever. But as a tree, it's kind of whatever.
Okay.
Besides the fact that it grows its fruit in such an interesting way, I actually get a little bit of a, it's not tryptophobia, but a little bit of like a kind of response when I look at this, because they look like beetles to me.
Oh.
Like when I first glance at it, they're like, they have like kind of a shiny, exoskeleton look to them.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. They are very shiny. Grapes have like the bloom on it, where they kind of are like almost whitish blue sometimes.
And these do not have that.
No.
These are
Polished.
Yes, polished. Thank you. So, but the insides look good. I've just never had them. I need to have them. So I think I will give kind of a perfunctory. I think I'm with you, Kay. 6.5.
Okay, 6.5. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're just not inspired by a tree.
It's a great take. I mean, it's a really interesting topic.
It brings up a very curious question, doesn't it?
Yeah, but as a tree, it's fine.
It's just fine. Well, Alex, speaking of eating and trying tropical things that we have rated before, but not actually ever tasted,
You piqued my interest.
we got something in the mail the other day.
Yeah.
Can we go to let's go to the mailbox? Where's Blue and his clues?
The seed bag.
So this, we actually got this lovely surprise in the mail, and we didn't know it was coming. We knew it was going to be on the way by one of you lovely people out there. Goes by the name of Lisa O'Brien. Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks, Lisa.
For putting this all together.
This
Lisa
is huge.
reached out and said, "Hey, I would love to do this for you." And then months later, replied back again and said, "Listen, I ordered them. It looks like the sheet, like the actual the label has been printed, but it's never actually been sent."
Oh no.
And so Lisa was like, "I don't know if this is a scam."
I've been
And
there.
I replied, "Me like that would be the weirdest scam. Is just take your money, create a label, never send anything." But they did it through Etsy, I think. So at the end of the day, Etsy's like, yeah, if you pay for something, they don't get it, we'll follow through.
Sure.
Well, we got it.
Wow.
We finally got it. And inside this package are two very small, because we know that these things can get like feet long, little green pods. Alex, take a quick photo. But they are these two little bean pods, as you'd expect. They're about the size of my palm if my fingers are outstretched. And we know these things can get like a foot long or more. So these, we're going to try right now. This is an ad hoc, quickly put together version of trail snacks.
Did we say what these are?
No.
Everybody.
Oh, God. These are ice cream bean trees.
Ice cream bean tree
Pods.
beans. Toss one of those over
I
here.
can't believe I forgot to say what these actually are. We got these sent. Yeah, sorry. These are
Wow.
these are ice cream bean trees. Well, they're the pods from the ice cream bean tree.
Yeah, what do you call that? An ice cream bean?
Yeah, I think this is an ice cream bean. Yeah. So
Can we just give an initial impression?
Yes.
This feels like something you would find in your grandfather's shaving drawer, like a little leather pouch.
Oh, I see.
It's
With
so
something inside.
leathery, but also kind of felt on
It
the
is.
outside.
There's like a felt on the outside. Yeah.
So Casey, I'm gonna kind of follow my instincts here to open this thing.
Yeah. Okay.
My instincts failed
Uh-oh.
already.
So, in case anyone doesn't remember, this is Inga Edulus, and maybe we should watch a video real fast that tells us how to do this.
That might be a good idea.
Well, now it looks like they just split it. I think you're exactly right.
Okay.
So we're gonna try to do this, although I don't know if it's gonna work. I'm gonna split mine in a funny way, kind of like a banana, but you break the banana in half. Let's see if it's gonna work. It's not working. Okay, it worked.
This is an impressively designed package. Gotta be a
It smells kind of okay. You described it earlier when I told you about it as you said it smelled like green matter.
like plant matter.
Yeah, exactly. Wow, Alex, you did a great job. Oh my
got
gosh,
it
take a
open.
picture. Take a picture.
And it is gorgeous.
I also have mine open now too.
It's so hard to record radio while doing all this stuff, but we
Yeah,
just want you
exactly.
guys to know it's amazing.
Yeah, this is beautiful.
Oh wow.
It reminds me quite a bit, in fact, of the pawpaw. Explicitly.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, same like color and style of seeds.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
The kind of so it has the seeds are in there, but they're kind of covered in this fleshy, transparent sort of opaque flesh, white flesh.
Yes, it is fleshy
looks
white
like-
flesh.
It almost looks a little fuzzy in a way. So I think the idea, Casey, is to take one of these seeds out.
Yep.
Pop it in your mouth, chew off all the exocarp.
Let's see what it's like. It is very sweet. I have a feeling that these are not quite as done as ones in the video, because I see ones in the video that the fleshy white bits are very, very much thicker, and the actual whole thing is very light green and almost brown. It tastes great, like legitimately sweet, like ice cream. It reminds me. It does taste a lot like a pawpaw too.
This is crazy.
It's hard to do.
I cannot taste it.
Can't taste anything. Can you smell it?
I am getting like
Yeah, I smell it.
You know, in like bubbly water, there's like an essence. I'm getting like an essence of banana.
Yeah, yeah. This is another one. We got to go down. Got to go down to the tropics and actually go taste a legitimate, like very fresh, right off the tree, 8 inches long. This nice big, delicious bean tree.
I don't want Lisa to think we don't appreciate this.
No. Of course not.
This is amazing that she was able to send us these. But yeah, I'm getting. It's interesting. It's an experience. What do you think, Case?
I love them.
You want to give it a rating?
Yeah.
I'm not even sure that's fair.
Honestly, the beans themselves are pretty gnarly looking.
The texture of what the fruit is, you know, like the fruit that we eat, is very strange.
Yeah.
It's almost like ghostly in a way. Like I can't quite like get my teeth around it. It like slips and slides. It's very ethereal texture. I don't know if that makes sense to people, but
yeah. And honestly, it tastes more like something that I would just like pop in my mouth for a little bit. It's kind of like almost like a gum.
Sure. Suck on it for a while.
Yeah, you just got to work off all that stuff. Pomegranates are, I think, like that, but you chew through the whole seed, right?
I'm gonna start putting this like a tobacco.
Just stick it down. Sir, we don't allow chewing in here. Oh, I'm sorry. This is my ice cream bean tree. Bean.
I'm a cool Portlander.
All right.
And my final consensus is that it's almost flavorless. I mean, I seriously, I want to believe, but I taste almost nothing.
Okay, duly noted.
And the texture is very strange.
Yeah, it is very strange. But I love them. I like it.
Wow.
Honestly, the flavor, I can get a lot of this flavor. It's very pawpaw banana-y, where it's like, it's a delicious tropical flavor that I like. And that is my review. I'm gonna give these seeds to my friend Thomas, and I'm gonna see if they can grow them at their farm.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa, so much. That is amazing that you were able to send those to us. It was a long time coming, and we're so grateful.
Super fabulous.
That was Trail Snacks. Casey, it's time for our completely arbitrary AMA.
Okay.
If you have a question for us that you want answered on the podcast, become a premium member at arbitrarypod.supercast.com. It's ARBORTRARY pod.supercast.com. And this week we've got one from Rachel. And Rachel says, there is an episode of Schitt's Creek. You're familiar with this comedy television show?
Yes, very clever name.
With a joke about cone wine. That's
okay.
And that's wine made from cones.
Yeah, okay.
Rachel says, is this real? Could you make wine or another alcoholic beverage from cones? Thank you for your question, Rachel. I just love this idea, Casey. Cone wine.
I do. I like it.
I mean, I've seen here's my only thing. We talked about this a little bit before we started recording.
Yeah.
And my first thought is like wine. You need juice. There is no juice in a cone. You got to squeeze that fucker hard.
You got to squeeze it hard.
It's like olive oil. Like, Jesus. Or almond milk.
Yeah, exactly.
I know that's not how you make almond milk.
Milk the almonds.
They're little teats. Yeah, so I'm thinking no juice in a cone, not going to make wine.
Yeah.
But you might have found or thought of a bit of a workaround.
Yeah, I think maybe.
Let's hear it.
So I followed this person, Pascal Botter, I think is their name.
Wow.
And they are famous on the internet / their books that they've written that are all about wild crafting. And another thing that Pascal does is create different ferments from it, which is the term that many fermenters use to say the things that they create. They call them ferments.
Okay.
So what they end up making is something between wine and beer and kombucha with naturally fermented and naturally gathered materials. One of the things that they have done that I bought one of these books and I have yet to actually make anything because I have high aspirations and not a lot of time. Sorry. They will take and make a pine cone syrup, which we have had pine cone syrup, you and I.
Yes.
Another one of our lovely listeners sent us some syrup made of cones or spruce cones, pine cones, all these different things.
Yep.
And
that was cool.
It was tasty, but it's very sugary, right? Sugary and tastes very sappy because it actually is the literal cones of these trees.
Yeah.
So Pascal does a lot of that down the Southwest with pinyon cones. So the very first little round balls that are cones of a pinyon before they become big and mature.
Okay.
Jam them into a jar, pour in the syrup, and let it just sit there and seep. The flavors get in. You can do all this stuff with it.
They use the younger cones because they're
Yes.
more concentrated with whatever, quote, flavor.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And they're not super woody, so they can kind of...
Sure.
The things can get through them. They have less tannins and less lignin, that kind of thing.
Cool. Okay.
So they use that and then create a simple like soda from it where it just gets a little bit of carbon dioxide from the fermentation process, such a small amount of alcohol that it's kind of on the level of kombucha where
0.5.
technically, there's not a lot. And they will create all these different kind of sodas and fermented drinks and things. Cool. And I would be willing to bet that if you constructed the pine cone syrup in such a way that it had a certain sugar content that you could then distill or ferment, that you could make some kind of fermented soda beer wine-ish thing with that, or do more of a heavy distilling process and actually get that sugar to be turned into more of a hardcore spirit.
Totally.
So I'm pretty sure that you could do that. Do you want to
Realistic.
necessarily? I don't know.
Cone wine. That's a funny show. That Schitt's Creek.
Yeah.
I think it's over now. Has been for a while.
I think so, yeah.
But that is a funny cone wine. Does sound like, oh God, who tried?
Yes, right.
That?
Yeah. And why did you think it would be a thing?
And why did you put all your eggs in that basket?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So then I think it's possible that it could be done. And I also know that we have done this with like walnuts, where you get the early beginnings of a walnut, like in early June, mid-June. So the walnuts have not actually become hard. They haven't developed any of the hard shells on the inside. They're just essentially this green little like oval thing.
Little bud.
Yeah, collect a bunch of those, toss those into a jar, and add in some other flavors and some wine, or not even wine. I don't think there's any other alcohol. And you create nocino, which is this other kind of Italian liqueur made of that. It's the same exact process.
And it's like a walnut flavored liqueur.
Exactly.
Oh,
yeah.
wow,
And it
interesting.
becomes ever so slightly alcoholic. Nothing that's going to be too insane. I actually had someone make some for me a couple years ago. Me and my friend Dan Gleason cut down a tree, and then it happened to be a walnut. And my friend Grace was like, "Hey, Casey, my friend is looking for walnuts." And we were like, "We're literally cutting down a walnut right now."
Wow.
So we ended up collecting a couple bags, sent it off to her, and then she was just here, her friends in Portland, and they ended up giving me a little bottle of nocino as a thank you. And
They
I was
made
like,
it.
It was made it, yeah.
Holy
So
shit.
Collected in June, it's ready to go in December, or you can keep on aging it and it gets different flavors. and
Very
things.
cool.
So I'm like, I bet you could just do the same exact thing with a pine cone, maybe more of a liqueur than anything, but I bet you could.
I bet you too. We bet you, Rachel.
There you go, Rachel.
Thank
go
you
get
so
it.
much for your question. Like I said, if you want to ask us a question or get many other cool rewards and you want to support this podcast and make sure that it keeps going, become a Treemium member today. arbitrarypod.supercast.com. Of course, the crown jewel, the jewel in the crown
The jewel in the crown.
of the Treemium membership is the Cone Club. And we send monthly cone stickers to you, illustrated by a host of different artists. It's a lot of fun, and every envelope is guaranteed to be licked by Casey Clapp. You can't buy that kind of. Well, you can.
You can, honestly. I'll lick any envelope for $5. You know what
That's
I mean?
Casey's Fiverr. His Fiverr account is just
It
I lick
really is.
envelopes.
Yeah, and people are into it.
That's cool. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to this delicious episode of Completely Arbitrary.
That's right.
We will see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.
Completely Arbitrary is produced by Alex Crowson and Casey Clapp. Our artwork is by Jillian Barthold, and our music is by Aves and the Mini Vandals. If you want to support this podcast and become a Treemium member, head over to arbitrarypod.supercast.com. Thanks for listening.